Is Bitcoin getting ready to break out, and what do you need to know about it? So here we are taking a look at the Bitcoin Binance chart on the 1 week time interval, and you see that Bitcoin has two moving averages that are actually getting ready to cross. The first of which here is actually our 200-day moving average, and the green one here is our 50-day moving average. And whenever the 50-day moving average crosses over the 200-day moving average, you get what's known as a golden cross. But what does that actually mean for crypto? Well, as we take a look at the technicals, a golden cross is a chart pattern that is normally a very bullish technical, and it's also a bullish breakout pattern that's formed again whenever the crossover involving a security or cryptocurrency short term crosses over the long term moving average. The other thing to note here is when you're looking at the more elongated time intervals, such as the daily or the weekly, the longer you can zoom out and see this kind of pattern forming, the stronger normally the breakout tends to be. But is it just enough for us to actually see this kind of crossover happening in order for us to start getting excited? Well, the thing about a golden cross is it really happens in 3 stages, and they're pretty important. So for the first stage actually requires that the asset that you're looking at actually be involved in a downward trend, and clearly you see that here, and it usually bottoms out once selling is depleted. The second stage is when the shorter moving average, again, the 50 crosses over the longer moving average, the 200-day, and it crosses in an upward movement, right? So again, if this is your 200 is the red, the green is your 50, the 50 is crossing over the 200 in an upward pattern. That's normally what you want to see. And the last stage is a continuation uptrend of the following through the higher prices. Now, the thing to keep in mind here is that as prices are moving up, the moving averages can actually act as support levels on pullbacks until they cross back over, which is known as a death cross, which is basically where you have the inverse, where the 200 crosses over the 50 from above. Can these things actually print, if you want to call it that, false breakout? Sure, it's happened before, but it doesn't really happen too much. The other thing to keep in mind is that this golden cross that we have here is somewhat of a lagging indicator, so it's never 100% going to predict something that can happen, but this is a nice thing to see on your chart to say, hey, you might want to start paying attention to the Bitcoin on the weekly and the subsequent time frames, moving all the way down to the 4 hour. People that are day trading, the 5 to 15 minute, they may use something as a 5 EMA as well as a 15 EMA. It really just depends on the time frame that you're looking at. Now, I know I've been on record saying that I think the bottom of this market is somewhere around 9,800 to around 11,200 area. And sure, the macros aren't exactly friendly. We just got a job report last week that was pretty amazing in terms of the amount of jobs that were created. I think we were expecting somewhere around 100,000, and the U.S. created some 500,000. So what that tells me is that the Fed probably has a lot more work that needs to be done. So things from the macro don't necessarily look all that great. And again, if we're paying attention to the limitations of the golden cross, again, all indicators are lagging and no indicator can truly predict the future. And many times the observed golden cross produces a false signal despite its apparent and predictive power in forecasting, a prior larger bull market. So it's something that I'm going to take a look at here in terms of seeing if this can in fact produce a false chart, if you want to call it that, or rather a false signal. Really just had to take a time out there because Jerome Powell is actually currently speaking at the Economic Club of Washington, D.C., and the moderator came out and asked him, he said, if you would have known the jobs numbers would have come out as strong as they did, would you have issued a higher rate hike? And Jerome Powell is kind of just saying that, hey, further rate hikes are coming down the line, and we're not going to get there by 2023 in terms of 2% inflation. The goal is probably going to be into 2024 as well. So even though we're currently looking at, this golden cross here, as we mentioned earlier, that sometimes these things can print a false signal because, again, they are lagging indicators. And overall, the macro does not look all that great for risk on investments like cryptocurrency. Unless this golden cross just invalidates and goes against the grain of which the macro is saying. Again, I'm not 100% going to go full on bullish until Bitcoin cracks 42,000. And I don't think that's going to happen until things from a macro investment or macro environment change. So I'd be curious to see how this plays out. Obviously, I'm going to pay very close attention to it, and any trades that I do in fact take to the upside, I'm not really going to be swinging for the fences on it. More likely just going to be trying to make contact and just kind of keep my eye on how things are going from the macro standpoint. If all that changes, I would definitely let people know. But yeah, that's just what's on my radar now. I know there's going to be a lot of people who are talking about this golden cross, but it's important that we also take a look at what the macro is doing as well. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave them in the comment section below. I appreciate you guys for checking out this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.